Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. We have another great show for you. First, charges are officially filed against Mr. Robinson, and we have new evidence and some heightened jail security. The court dismisses the terrorism charges against Luigi Mangione in the United Healthcare CEO murder case. A Florida couple faces capital murder charges in the son's death. We have This Day in Legal History. Our legal quote of the day comes from Justice Louis Brandeis. And our dumb criminal, remember that elderly guy who tried to distract people in Utah? Guess what they found on his phone? Let's talk about it.
All right, lawyer.
Good day, everybody. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't, like if you do, leave me a comment below, hit that little bell for notifications, and you can check us out anytime on any of your favorite podcasting apps. Now, before we get started, quick note. It is Tuesday, so what does that mean? That's right, Tuesday Night Live, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Please join us. All right, and before we get to the docket, let me remind you, go to crimetalksearch.com, sign up for that background subscription service today. When you do, you'll get a background report literally prepared while you wait, and it will be emailed to you. You're going to get all types of information about the person you're looking at. You're going to look at their email addresses that they have. You're going to look at their social media presence, phone numbers that they have. Why do they have multiple phones? Why do they have multiple emails? What do they not tell you about all those emails and extra phone numbers? Something to think about, right? You're going to find out if, they own property. Are they married? Are they divorced? Do they have a criminal history? And are they on one of those sex offender registries? That's right. Everything you want to know about somebody that maybe they're just not telling you until, the right time. Well, now is the right time to go find out. So go to crimetalksearch.com, sign up today. You're going to be happy that you did. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a long day. I left the house early this morning to go visit a client being held in custody in a jail facility far, far away from the city. 5.5 hours of driving, couple hours visit. But don't worry, we're here bringing you the daily docket on Crime Talk, and we'll bring you our live show tonight. Why? Because sleep is for wimps, ladies and gentlemen. Sleep is for wimps. All right. Let's go ahead and open the record for Tuesday, September 16th, 2025. And all right, charges have been filed amid revelations of new evidence. That's right. Police have formally charged 22-year-old Tyler Robinson with aggravated murder and related offenses in the assassination of Charlie Kirk, revealing new details about the suspect's communication and potential motives during a press conference that was held today. Concurrently, the Utah County Jail has implemented stringent security protocols to prevent him from self-harm or external threats to Robinson, drawing comparisons to the high-profile cases like that of Jeffrey Epstein. Now, the Utah County Attorney, Jeff Gray, announced the charges, which include felony aggravated murder, felony discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury, and 2 counts of witness tampering. Gray indicated that prosecutors intend to seek the death penalty, emphasizing Robinson's alleged instructions to his roommate to delete evidence and avoid speaking to law enforcement following the shooting. After the incident, Robinson directed his roommate to erase incriminating messages and to remain silent if questioned by the police. Now, the press conference highlighted text messages recovered by investigators in which Robinson reportedly confessed to the crime shortly after Kirk's death on September 10th. According to the charging documents, Robinson apologized to his roommate, Lance Twigg, a transgender woman with whom he was having a romantic relationship, and clarified that the police had initially detained unrelated individuals. Now, he described stashing the rifle near the scene at the Utah Valley University and attempting to retrieve it amid a lockdown. Now, Robinson allegedly noted that he had planned the act for over a week, stating, quote, "I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out," end quote. Further evidence included a note discovered under Robinson's keyboard reading, quote, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it," end quote. Investigators also recovered unfired bullets engraved with phrases reflecting anti-fascist sentiments and memes, such as lyrics from the Italian resistance song Bello Ciao, reference to video game airstrike code, and derogatory remarks aimed at conservative ideologies. One engraving read, "Hey fascists, catch," accompanied by directional arrows, while another stated, "If you read this, you are gay, LMAO." Police confirmed no prior knowledge or involvement by Twiggs, that's the roommate, who had cooperated fully with the investigation. That's right, because Mr. Twiggs didn't want to go to prison. Good thing he didn't know anything about it and didn't delete all that stuff. Anyway, Robinson's family, described as supporters of Republican causes, apparently played quite the role in his apprehension. His parents recognized him from surveillance images released by the FBI, and they confronted him, leading to his confession. He reportedly told them that Kirk spread too much hate amid reports of Robinson's shift towards left-leaning views, including advocacy for LGBTQ plus rights in the year preceding the shooting. Family discussions had previously touched on Kirk's event at the university, which Robinson criticized as promoting division. His father identified the rifle as one that he had gifted to his son that was originally Robinson's grandfather's. Yeah. Anyway, the FBI director, Kash Patel, confirmed DNA links between Robinson and the items at the crime scene, including a towel-wrapped rifle and a screwdriver from the rooftop where the fatal shot originated, approximately 200 yards from Kirk, during the speech to around 3,000 attendees. Now, Patel noted ongoing scrutiny of Robinson's Discord chat group involving more than 20 participants to explore any broader connections, though the assassination is not currently classified as part of a pattern targeting religious groups. Now, in parallel, the Utah County Sheriff's Department has placed Robinson under special watch in a segregated housing unit at the Spanish Forks facility, prioritizing suicide prevention and protection from potential harm by other inmates there at the jail. Now, these measures include constant lighting, video surveillance monitored without interruption, and anti-suicide garments made of tear-resistant materials. Inmates in these units receive no standard bedding, utensils, or writing instruments, with cells featuring padded surfaces, embedded plumbing, and unbreakable fixtures to minimize risk of self-harm. There's also a psychological strain on these when these people are in these conditions, particularly for the first-time detainees like Robinson. But it's been stressed that they're necessary given the global attention of this case. The objective is to ensure that no lapse occurs, avoiding scenarios that could fuel conspiracy theories, obviously referencing Epstein's 2019 death, where he allegedly suicided himself. Now, the Utah governor, Spencer Cox, noted Robinson's lack of cooperations with authorities, which is his constitutional right to do. But frankly, after hearing the press conference that we brought to you live on CrimeTalk, they got a pretty good case. Let's be fair. The prosecution, I don't think, needs his help anymore. The only way Mr. Robinson is going to be able to help himself if he says that there were other people involved and maybe he was willing to roll on them. There you go. Anyway, Mr. Robinson is going to be held without bail upon his initial suspicions of obstruction of justice and related charges. Now, if convicted, he faces the potential execution, which can obviously span for decades. The last time anybody was killed in, I think, Utah was, almost 20 or 30 years ago. If he were convicted, he would then be transferred to the Utah State Correctional Facility there in Salt Lake, a 3,600 bed site housing death row inmates. Now, Kirk leaves behind his wife and 2 young children, and the case will continue. Now, the prosecutor said he intends to file a notice of intent to seek the death penalty in this particular case. And he gave a very detailed statement from the affidavit for probable cause that can obviously, he noted, that needs to withstand the crucible of trial, the defining moment of cross-examination, holding the government to their burden of proof. I appreciated the prosecutor acknowledging all that and saying, we're going to we're going to give you information. We're not going to spoon feed everything to you. But if it's public information, we're going to give it to you. I hope that continues. And, the facts are what they are. They got video surveillance. They've got confessions. They got DNA evidence. They have Robinson's DNA on the trigger. Bad fact, right? If I was this kid's defense attorney, all right, they're going to go death. Let's see. Here's the bad fact aisle. Here's the good fact aisle. How do we move these facts over to the good facts? Going to be a good, tough job. Somebody's got to do it, and I'm sure they will be professional. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, those defense attorneys, whoever they're going to be assigned to this case, they're doing their job. Okay, the system works with everybody in it, and the system works better with everybody in it. Next on the docket, Luigi Mangione has a big day in court. That's right. The court dismisses the terrorism charges against Luigi Mangione. So a significant development occurred in the state murder case against Luigi Mangione, the 27-year-old Ivy League educated man accused of killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson on December 4th of last year. Now, in a ruling issued by Manhattan Supreme Court Judge Gregory Caro, C-A-R-R-O, the top charges of murder in the first degree as an act of terrorism and murder in the second degree as a crime of terrorism were dismissed, citing insufficient evidence of terroristic intent. Now, this decision represents a substantial setback for the district attorney's office there in Manhattan. And for those who aren't familiar with the case, Luigi Mangione is alleged to have fatally shot Brian Thompson, a 50-year-old father of two, outside the Hilton Hotel in Midtown Manhattan during his United Healthcare Investors Conference. He was obviously the CEO, so he was going to be there talking to the investors, the shareholders. Prosecutions claimed that Mangione engraved the words "deny, depose, and delay" on the bullet casings reflect his frustration with the healthcare system, reportedly stemming from personal health issues. Now, the prosecution presented evidence of a premeditated and calculated execution, but the judge ruled that this did not meet the threshold for terrorism-related charges. Now, Mangione still faces one count of murder in the second degree, which carries a sentence of 25 years to life, with the possibility of parole, as well as multiple weapon possession charges and one count of possession of a forged instrument. So during this brief 15-minute hearing today, Mangione appeared in the Manhattan Supreme Court wearing a tan prison jumpsuit and maroon shirt with his hands and legs shackled. The dismissal of the terrorism charges was met with visible relief among his supporters in the courtroom, some of whom were seen smiling or wiping away tears. Now, Mangione's defense teams argue that the prosecution had rushed to bring the case, a claim bolstered by the judge's ruling that the evidence was legally insufficient to support the terrorism charge. Well, what does this mean? Well, Mangione still faces separate federal charges, including murder through the use of firearms offenses, and 2 counts of stalking, which allege the killing was committed in furtherance of terrorism. These charges make him eligible for the death penalty, and the Attorney General Pam Bondi has indicated her intent to pursue execution if Mangione is convicted. Now, the federal prosecutors have warned that Mangione's actions may inspire others to use violence for ideological or political purposes, noting a growing public sentiment in some circles that view such acts as acceptable. Anyway, Mangione has garnered some significant public attention, with supporters raising over $1.2 million for his legal defense fund. Many, particularly younger individuals, view him as a symbol of resistance against perceived corruption in the healthcare industry. I'm sure the CEO's family would disagree with that. Anyway, supporters gathered outside the courthouse, some wearing T-shirts and masks in tribute of Mangione, and others holding signs referencing the Super Mario Brothers character, Luigi. Anyway, Elena Boyer, a supporter, stated that healthcare is a human right, emphasizing Mangione's symbolic role, though she clarified she does not condone murder. Well, maybe a little bit, okay? And I understand you may feel a particular way, but if you go back and read the Constitution, nowhere did I see that the Founding Fathers put in there that healthcare is a fundamental human right. Additionally, nobody has passed an amendment to the Constitution saying that you're entitled to free health care. Nowhere. I can't imagine the founding fathers thought that. I'm assuming they probably paid their doctor or the doctor did it for free. But we don't have doctors doing it for free now, do we? I guess not. Anyway, supporters can believe what they want. But the reality of it is, as a defense attorney, you got a pretty tough case to say that it wasn't. I mean, if traveling across state lines, marking the bullets, creating a gun, stalking the individual, shooting him in the back is not acts of premeditation, I'm not exactly sure what is. Additionally, the judge said that he didn't think it met the standards for a terrorism charge. Now, the prosecution may appeal. Normally, the evidence has to be viewed in the light most favorable to the prosecution at this stage of the proceeding. And for the judge to make a legal ruling on what could potentially be a question of fact, it's a mixed question of law and fact. I think that if there's an appeal, it may get reversed. And we'll have to wait and see what happens on that. But think about it. Was it a terroristic act? Why is that not a question of fact for the jury to decide? I think the judge may have jumped the gun a little bit on this one. But hey, I get it. If you're Luigi and his attorneys and his supporters, soak it up. We'll see if it's a true victory or whether it rings to be hollow. Now, obviously, this case has drawn comparison to recent killings of, for example, Charlie Kirk of the Turning Point USA on September 10th. There in Utah, the alleged perpetrator, obviously Mr. Robinson, is accused of engraving messages on bullet casings similar to Mancione's case, prompting speculation about shared motivations. Now, both cases have sparked some polarizing public reactions, with some condemning the violence and others viewing it as a response to systemic grievances. Kind of goes to the terrorism charge that you were obviously going to harm other people, but you were kind of inspiring them to do other things like, I don't know, engraving your bullets. Or some people will say, Luigi Mangione is not the same. I mean, he's just making a political statement. I get it. If I was representing Mancione, I would be making the same arguments. I really would. And the reality of it is, his attorneys are doing their job. And apparently today they did it pretty well. We'll see if it stands up. Anyway, Mancione was arrested in Altoona, Pennsylvania, days after the murder, where he also faces gun charges and is scheduled to appear in court in Pennsylvania on November 7th. And a notebook found in his possession reportedly described the killings as targeted, precise, and doesn't risk innocence, suggesting he viewed the act as a symbolic gesture. And needless to say, Mancione has denied all allegations, and obviously he's entitled to the presumption of innocence. Now, the dismissal of the terrorism charge in the state case marks a significant legal victory for Mancione, though the remaining state and federal charges ensure that his legal battles are far from over. Next, a Florida couple may face the ultimate punishment for what they allegedly did to their kid. So Lewis and Quintosha Massacu, that's a Quwentosha, Quintosha, common spelling, Massacu, Massaqui, a Florida couple have been charged with first-degree murder and aggravated child abuse, and they are scheduled to appear in court in Lee County following the death of their 12-year-old son back in January of this year. Now, according to the Lee County Sheriff's Office, the boy weighed only 58 pounds and was severely malnourished at the time of his death. And he also suffered from multiple medical conditions that deteriorated over several months without medical intervention. Now, the parents allegedly failed to seek treatment due to their religious beliefs, which investigators report prioritized prayer over conventional medicine. The couple's specific religious affiliation was not disclosed. But we do know that the deputies discovered internet searches on the parents' phones related to the boy's symptoms and potential treatment, but no professional medical care was sought. The sheriff's office stated that the couple chose not to seek medical treatment, leading to the boy's prolonged suffering and ultimate eventual death. Now, the couple was arrested back in June of this year with formal indictments for capital murder, aggravated child abuse, and failure to report child abuse issued this week. If convicted, they face the possibility of the death penalty. Now, the sheriff down there remarked that this poor child endured prolonged suffering before his parents ultimately let him die. And they said, of course, that he's proud of the work alongside the state attorney's office in bringing these individuals responsible to justice, and he will continue to support their efforts to secure a lengthy conviction. Those cases are tough, ladies and gentlemen. Religious freedom, seek medical attention. They used to have a string of these decades ago, but haven't had one in a while. But when your child is malnourished, you hope to think that at some point you'd seek somebody's advice, doctor, nurse, witch doctor, anything to help your kid. I understand, the power of prayer, but sometimes, a little help never hurts. You know what I mean? Anyway, this day in legal history, on September 16th, 1974, President Gerald Ford announced a conditional amnesty program for Vietnam War deserters and draft dodgers, which would waive any charges provided they agreed to do 2 years in public service. Now, a presidential clemency board was created to administer the program. It finished its work in 1975 after having disposed of 14,000 some odd cases. Now, critics said the initiative did not go far enough. However, noted that only 19% of the eligible persons ever applied for the amnesty as well. Next, quote of the day comes from Justice Louis Brandeis when he was on the United States Supreme Court. And it says, "If there be time to expose through discussion the falsehood and fallacies to avert the evil by the process of education, the remedy to be applied is more speech, not enforced silence." Justice Brandeis wrote that in Whitney v. California, a 1927 United States Supreme Court case. And then finally, our dumb criminal of the day. Little elderly decoy dramatics. That's right. So, distraction takes a dark turn in a plot twist straight out of a bad spy thriller. Take a look at this guy, 71-year-old George Zinn. The audience member nabbed at Charlie Kirk's Utah Valley University event confessed to cops that his fake admission of shooting Kirk was all a ruse to let the real gunman slip away like a ghost in the chaos. He said, quote, "I shot him. Now shoot me." Zinn reportedly bellowed right after the shots rang out, channeling his inner martyr with Oscar-worthy flair. Later, chatting with investigators, he spilled the beans. It was all to draw attention from the real shooter. For this bit of theatrical obstruction, Zinn snagged a second-degree felony charge. But wait, the script gets even grimier. Turns out Zinn's phone was a Pandora's box of horrors. Police, upon a thorough peek, uncovered 20 images of child sexual abuse material, plus some stomach-turning explicit messages. Now, on top of playing decoy, he's facing multiple counts of sexual exploitation of a minor, proving that some distractions hide deeper depravities. Who knew a self-proclaimed hero could double as such a villainous punchline? Well, Mr. Zinn will give you the presumption of innocence, but apparently you told the detectives you kind of like him between the ages of 5 and 12. Mr. Zinn, not only if that is true, it is gross, but you are a dumb criminal of the day. You had to get involved. Be careful what you wish for, sir. That's all we have for today, ladies and gentlemen. Join us 6 p.m. Mountain Time tonight for our live program. We'll see you then, and always remember and never forget, the Constitution matters.